My daughter was suddenly diagnosed with lung cancer, and her dying wish was to see Aunt Clementine get pregnant with my husband's baby. My husband explained, "We're just going to do IVF. There's no need for intercourse." I readily agreed. Not long after, I saw a pregnancy test report on my daughter's social media. There was also a photo celebrating Clementine. The three of them looked like a happy family. The caption read, "Dad has compromised for half his life and finally has the crystallization of love with his sweetheart. I'm so happy for him." I smiled, closed my phone, and boarded the plane to a foreign country. After I left, my husband and daughter went crazy looking for me. 1. After leaving the hospital, Clementine was holding a medical report. It showed that she was successfully pregnant, and the father of the child was my husband of 10 years. My daughter excitedly grabbed Clementine's hand. "It's great, Aunt Clementine. You're finally pregnant with my dad's baby." Lance gave my daughter a look, and my daughter immediately covered her mouth. Lance patted my shoulder and comforted me. "Honey, you and Dahlia are my family." Clementine's eyes were red, and she gratefully held my hand. "Sister-in-law, thank you so much for this. When I first mentioned this to Lance, he was afraid you wouldn't be happy." Then she looked at Lance and said coquettishly, "I told you my sister-in-law wasn't that petty." "Isn't she, sister-in-law?" Seeing that I didn't speak, the corners of her mouth immediately drooped, and she pulled Lance to go back to the hospital. "Lance, forget it. I'll just go and have the baby aborted, so as not to upset my sister-in-law and affect your marital relationship." Lance looked at me helplessly. "Ember, say something." Seeing this, my daughter stamped her feet and said, "Mom, didn't you agree the other day? Why are you making a face at her now?" She ignored my stomachache and dragged me to apologize to Clementine. "Quickly apologize to Aunt Clementine. What are you standing there for? If Aunt Clementine really aborts the baby, you'll be a murderer." I smiled wryly. "Now are you satisfied? Can you go to the hospital for treatment now?" My daughter's eyes darted around, and she nodded with a pale face. As soon as Clementine stepped into the hospital door, Lance and my daughter helped her out. The two of them carefully guarded Clementine, watching the three of them gradually disappear from sight. I covered my stomach and turned to leave. When I got home, I took 2 painkillers before the pain subsided. Looking at the family portrait on the wall, I couldn't help but cry. I used to think I had a happy family. My husband doted on me, and my daughter was obedient and sensible. But just 3 days ago, the beauty in my heart was completely shattered. My mom is such a fool. No wonder Dad only likes Aunt Clementine in his heart. I'm afraid I inherited her IQ. When I said I had lung cancer, she actually believed it. The person who said this was my daughter. I stood at the door of the ward and watched my daughter pull out the fake needle from her wrist. I was completely stiff, unable to believe that these words came from the mouth of my own daughter, whom I had loved for 18 years. And Lance and Clementine stood aside, holding hands, looking very affectionate. Thanks to Dahlia this time. Otherwise, Aunt would have left with regrets all her life. My daughter Dahlia excitedly climbed out of bed and leaned over to listen to Clementine's stomach. "The baby seems to be kicking me," she exclaimed excitedly. Lance looked at Clementine with both relief and tenderness. "Clementine, you've worked hard. I'll definitely make it up to you in the future. We're a family. Why are we being so polite? Besides, I volunteered for this, and I'm already very satisfied to be able to give birth to a child for you." Listening to their laughter and joy in the room, I stood at the door, shocked and heartbroken. I don't remember how I got home that day. I just remember that I had a high fever that night and vomited all night. But I couldn't cry a single tear. I just laughed at my own stupidity. Since I found out my daughter was sick, I couldn't sleep all night. I ran back and forth between the hospital. In the end, it was just a carefully designed scam by my father and daughter. The vibration of my phone pulled my thoughts back to reality. It was my sister calling. "Ember, is the 200,000 yuan I transferred to you enough? If not, I'll try to find a way to get more for you." Hearing this, I smiled bitterly. "No need, Dahlia isn't sick at all." "What did you say?" My sister's voice was full of disbelief, but I had no strength to speak. Listening to my sister calling my name, I felt my eyelids getting heavier and heavier. Finally, I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. My sister frowned and scolded me. You too, you have such a serious stomach ache, and you don't take care of it. If I hadn't taken a taxi to your house, you would have fainted and no one would have known. Where's Lance? 2. My sister looked at me with concern, and I looked up at her and the man standing beside her. It's you? I looked at him in surprise. Kai raised an eyebrow. What, don't you welcome me? Before I could speak, my sister immediately said, Kai just returned to China 2 days ago. He heard about Dahlia's situation and wanted to come and take a look. Kai stared at me, his lips pursed. How did you end up like this? How about Dahlia? Is the medical fee enough? My sister seemed to suddenly remember something and asked me, By the way, you said yesterday that Dahlia wasn't sick. What's going on? I sighed and told her the whole story. My sister was furious when she heard it. What an ungrateful daughter and son-in-law. You quit your job to take care of Lance's sick parents, and you've contributed so much to the Lance family. Doesn't he have any idea? And your daughter, you almost lost your life giving birth to her, and she actually deceived you like this for an outsider? No, I have to settle this score with them. My sister was so angry that she was about to go find Lance to settle the score, but I pulled her back. Forget it, sis. My sister looked at me with heartache. Are you just going to wrong yourself and let them get away with it? You still can't let go of Lance, can you? I shook my head and said calmly, I don't want a husband or a daughter anymore. Since they want to be a family with Clementine, then I'll let them be. My sister accompanied me to finish the infusion. In the middle of the night, Lance called, Honey, why aren't you at home? Before I could speak, he couldn't wait to say, Do you know? I took Clementine for a checkup today, and the fetus is very healthy. The baby will be born in 2 months. I forced a smile. Really? Congratulations then. Lance hesitated for a moment, and then said, Can you come to the delivery? I'm afraid she will be upset if you don't go. You know how sensitive pregnant women are. Okay, just so happens I have a gift to give you both. Seeing that I wasn't angry, Lance was obviously stunned. He hesitated. Are you really willing to come? Aren't you angry? I laughed. What's there to be angry about? She's been waiting for you for so many years, and besides, it's artificial insemination, it's nothing. Moreover, I have to thank her. If it weren't for her fulfilling my daughter's wish, my daughter wouldn't have agreed to treatment so quickly. Lance was very moved on the other end of the phone. Ember, it's my blessing to have such a tolerant and magnanimous wife. I sneered in my heart, but I responded politely. After being discharged from the hospital, I returned home and started to pack my things. Some things were mailed home. As for the things related to Lance and Dahlia, I threw them all into the trash. Watching the scarf I stayed up late to knit for my daughter, and the cookbook I bought because Lance couldn't sleep, being slowly consumed by flames, my heart felt empty. 20 years, and all that was left were these ashes. That night, I curled up on the sofa in the living room and fell asleep unconsciously, until I heard a familiar voice. A coat was draped over me. Lance wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes and coaxed me softly. Why are you sleeping in the living room? Are you feeling unwell? He was as gentle and considerate as always, but now it seemed to be just a mask of hypocrisy. I shook my head. No, I'm just a little tired. By the way, how is MS? Clementine doing these days? She's about to give birth. You should spend more time with her. Lance hugged me tightly, his voice full of guilt. Honey, I've wronged you during this time. After Clementine gives birth, I promise you I won't have anything to do with her anymore, okay? 3. Looking at his serious expression, I couldn't help but feel a pang in my nose. Lance. He responded softly. I looked at him with red eyes and said tremblingly, You and your daughter, there must be nothing you would hide from me, right? Hearing this, Lance's expression changed slightly. He stroked my head and said gently, Silly wife, how could your daughter and I hide anything from you? Don't overthink it. Hearing his lie, I didn't feel the expected loss or pain. Instead, I smiled with relief. Okay. Lance received a call from Clementine and hurried to take care of her. And at that moment, my heart, which had followed him for 20 years, was finally let go. I called my sister. Sis, can you find me a reliable lawyer? I want a divorce. Hearing this, my sister sighed. Okay, I'll help you with this. I'm glad you finally figured it out. A week later, Kai suddenly called me and asked me to meet at a coffee shop. When I arrived, I found out. It turns out that Kai has been working as a lawyer abroad all these years, and he took my divorce case. He handed me the drafted divorce agreement. Don't worry, with me handling the case, you won't lose. We discussed the details together and added a clause in the agreement, waiving custody of my daughter. Soon it was time for Clementine to give birth. Lance was so anxious that he called me. On the phone, he said anxiously, "Why haven't you come yet? Clementine is about to go into the delivery room." And I just silently put the divorce agreement into my bag and zipped it up. I'll be right there. When I arrived at the hospital, Lance and my daughter were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. When she saw me, my daughter impatiently said, "Why did you take so long? Aunt Clementine has already gone in. I don't know if the delivery is going smoothly." Seeing my own daughter so anxious for someone else, I just found it ridiculous. The operating lights in the delivery room were on. Both father and daughter were clutching their fingers tightly, afraid that anything would go wrong. Half an hour later, the operating light finally went out. The nurse pushed Clementine, who was sweating profusely, out, and the baby beside her was crying with her eyes closed. To be honest, her eyebrows and eyes really resembled Lance's. My daughter and Lance both ran over to comfort Clementine. My daughter cried, "Aunt Clementine, it's a good thing you're okay. If anything happened to you, I wouldn't want to live either." Lance also had tears in his eyes. "It's good that you're safe." Clementine wiped the tears from my daughter's face and stroked Lance's face, saying with tears, "I gave birth to your son. I have no regrets in this life." Then she turned to me and said, "Ember, thank you for your understanding. I'll leave Lance and Dahlia to you. Promise me you'll take good care of them. Lance, he doesn't sleep well. Remember to make him a cup of hot milk every night. I'm most worried about Dahlia. This child is allergic to mangoes. You must pay attention when buying fruits." I interrupted her without hesitation. "Since you're so worried, you should just take care of this father and daughter." Lance's face changed drastically when he heard this. "Ember, what do you mean?" 4. I took the divorce agreement out of my bag and handed it to Lance. "Now that you have a child, you should take responsibility for her, right? Let's get a divorce." Seeing me say this so calmly, Lance was clearly stunned. He frowned and looked at me inquisitively. His voice was full of anger. "Ember, are you serious?" My daughter was also stunned. She pointed at my nose and scolded me. I said, "How did you change your mind? It turns as if you've been planning this all along. Aunt Clementine has already promised not to see Dad anymore. What else do you want?" I slapped her hard. I scolded my daughter angrily. "How dare you talk to your mother like that?" My daughter stomped her feet angrily. "You're not my mother. I don't have a mother as petty as you. How can you compare to Aunt Clementine?" I was amused by my daughter's words. "Then that's perfect. Don't call me Mom anymore. Just call Clementine Mom directly. I'll just pretend I never gave birth to you." My daughter gnashed her teeth angrily. "Okay, you said it, don't regret it." Seeing that I was about to leave with the divorce agreement, Lance also realized something was wrong. He quickly caught up with me. "Are you doing this to me because of Clementine?" He looked at me helplessly. "I've already promised you that I won't have anything to do with her anymore. What else do you want from me?" I sneered. "I've already fulfilled your wish and let you be with Clementine. What else do you want from me?" "That's not what I meant." Lance quickly grabbed my hand and said, "We've been together for 20 years. Are you really going to divorce me just because of this little thing?" "A little thing?" Hearing this, I laughed even harder. "Lance, since we got married, when have you and Clementine ever kept your distance? Have you ever heard of a newlywed husband who doesn't accompany his wife on their wedding night and goes to his first love's house to comfort another woman? When Clementine was giving birth, you and your daughter were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Do you remember where you were when I gave birth to Dahlia?" Lance's face froze and his lips moved, but he couldn't say a word. Of course he remembered. When I was in difficult labor, and the doctor even issued a critical illness notice. He was accompanying Clementine with a cold to register at the clinic. My sister called him frantically, but all she got was his cold reply. Clementine is feeling unwell. It's troublesome to register at the clinic, and she's so clumsy. I have to help her get it done before I can come over. My sister was hysterical. Lance, are you still human? Your wife is having a difficult childbirth and could have died. And Clementine is a 3-year-old child? She can't even register for a clinic visit? But all she got in response was Lance hanging up the phone. It was from then on that my sister advised me to divorce Lance, saying that my marriage to Lance was doomed to be unhappy. At that time, I was still stubbornly convinced that since we had been together from school to marriage, this relationship was precious. And after I gave birth, Lance held me and cried with heartache. During my confinement, he also took good care of me, so I quickly forgot about the incident. But now, it seems that my sister was right. I forcefully pulled my hand away from Lance, and at that moment Kai strode over. He wrapped his arm around my waist and looked at Lance coldly. Lance stared at my waist and asked through gritted teeth, "Ember, who is he?" Before I could speak, Kai leaned over and smiled. "What? You can have a first love, but Ember can't?" He looked at me tenderly, and I couldn't help but blush. 5. Lance's eyes fell on me coldly, with a hint of anger. "Ember, why have I never heard you mention having a male best friend?" His words reminded me, when I first confirmed my relationship with Lance, Kai disappeared as if he had evaporated. I had no news from him. He even blocked me on all my accounts. I thought at the time that I had offended him somewhere, and time passed quickly for nearly 20 years. I don't think I mentioned him to Lance, but it doesn't matter anymore. Kai didn't want to pay any attention to Lance and pulled me to leave. Lance grabbed my arm and glared at Kai. "She's my wife. What right do you have to take her away?" Kai looked at me and smiled lightly. "All right, then why don't you ask Ember? Does she want to go with me or stay?" Lance held my arm tightly and wouldn't let go. "No need to choose. Ember must want to stay by my side." He overestimated my love for him. It's true, I've been with him for nearly 20 years, and every time I encounter something with him, I would compromise and accommodate him. How could Ember, who loved him so much, leave with someone else? I shook Lance's hand off forcefully and met his surprised gaze. "Lance, we've been together for so many years. I hope we can end this relationship decently. I hope you can sign the divorce agreement as soon as possible, otherwise, I will sue for divorce." Hearing my words, Lance was shocked. He stared at me incredulously. "Ember, you must still blame me, right?" I ignored him and got into Kai's car. As the car window rolled up, I saw my daughter running over. She angrily said, "Dad, why don't you just marry Aunt Clementine? I don't want a mother like you." From the corner of my eye, I saw Lance slap my daughter hard. My heart was calm. "Are we going home or somewhere else?" Kai turned to me. "Let's go to a hotel." I had already packed up my things at home, and a part of it had been sent back to my hometown. Kai hummed in response and continued driving. After arriving at the hotel, I washed up and saw my daughter had posted a post online. A family photo. Clementine was holding her newborn son in the photo, and Lance and his daughter Dahlia were standing beside them. They looked like a happy family. The caption read, "Dad has compromised for half his life, and finally has the crystallization of love with his sweetheart. I'm so happy for him." There were many likes and comments under the post. Most of them were blessings. Some of our common friends also asked, "Isn't Lance's wife Ember?" But this comment was quickly brushed aside. I smiled and put down my phone. I had already booked a flight to a foreign country. Looking back on the first half of my life, I gave up my beloved job for Lance. Every day, I was busy with housework, taking care of his sick parents, and picking up and dropping off the kids. It felt like the first half of my life was consumed by Lance. I turned 40. There were a few white hairs at my temples. "So let's go on a trip." I visited many places alone these days, taking pictures everywhere. And my social media, which I hadn't updated for a long time, finally had a new post. It was a photo of me standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. In the photo, I was wearing a light blue dress and looked much better than before. Many friends liked and commented on my post, praising me for looking well maintained. There was also a comment from Lance. Ember, you look beautiful in that blue dress. Seeing this sentence, I couldn't help but think of when I first got together with Lance. He said the same thing to me. When we first met, I was wearing a light blue dress, and he said I looked beautiful in it. But he didn't know that I often wore this dress after marriage. It's just that he didn't care at the time. 6. I ignored his comment and continued on to my next destination. I climbed a snow-capped mountain and saw the vast ocean. My mood suddenly brightened. I had a lot of fun that day, and when I returned to the hotel, Kai called me. Lance still doesn't agree to the divorce, Kai said coldly. I took a deep breath and remembered that I had previously warned Lance that if he didn't agree to sign the divorce agreement, I would go through the legal process. Then let's go through the legal process, I said slowly. Kai was a little surprised. Are you sure you can let go? Perhaps he knew how much I had sacrificed for Lance and thought I still cared about him. But he was wrong. Love can sometimes arise suddenly, and it can also disappear suddenly. Maybe it's just that I've had enough disappointment, I said calmly. There's nothing to let go of. But Kai hesitated for a moment, then said, I heard that Lance is in the hospital, that Clementine has a boyfriend abroad, and somehow found him and sent Lance to the hospital. Didn't Clementine take care of Lance for 20 years? How could she have a boyfriend? I asked. Kai said, how could she take care of him for 20 years? She's been sleeping with other men all these years, especially abroad. She's been even wilder. She couldn't have children because she had too many abortions. I have to say, your ex-husband is quite pathetic. Kai clicked his tongue. That Clementine is completely using him as a backup plan. She's only thinking about him now that she's had enough fun outside. I smiled. What's pathetic? Isn't all this just the result of his own actions? That's right. I discussed the lawsuit process with Kai, and then I received a message from my daughter Dahlia. Mom, Dad is in the hospital, and you're still out having fun. Do you even care about us? Seeing this message, I couldn't help but laugh and asked her, don't you just like your Aunt Clementine? Why don't you ask her to take care of your dad? There was a long silence on the other side, and then Dahlia sent a 60-second voice message. You are my biological mother, and you are Dad's original wife. What do you mean by saying that? Don't you understand that when I called Aunt Clementine Mom, I was just angry? No matter what I say, you and I are blood related, and that can't be changed. Besides, Dad won't divorce you. Don't play around outside, come back quickly. Listening to Dahlia's voice message, her tone was full of orders and impatience. I smiled coldly and replied, don't talk to me about blood ties. I can't give birth to a daughter as ungrateful as you. As for your dad, if he doesn't want to sign the divorce agreement, then let's go through the legal process. I saw Dahlia typing. Before she could send a message, I blocked her. I just treated her as if I didn't have such a daughter. 7. Over the past few days, I visited all the places I wanted to go and took many photos. On the day I returned to my country, I met Lance at the court. He seemed to have aged a lot, and there were many white hairs in his originally thick black hair. Ember. He pursed his lips and greeted me. I looked at the tears welling up in his eyes expressionlessly. The whole process went very smoothly. He agreed to all my requests. It wasn't until the end that I saw my daughter running towards me crying from the spectator seats. Mom, are you really leaving me? She threw herself into my arms and cried heartbreakingly. I only found out from my friends later. After I left, Clementine moved into Lance's house immediately. The virtuous image she had created in front of my daughter gradually revealed its true colors as they spent more time together. She couldn't cook, and she couldn't do laundry either. As time went on, Lance and Dahlia's attitude towards her was no longer the same as before. She kept urging Lance to divorce me, but Lance was reluctant. They even had a big argument about it. Seeing my daughter crying sadly and begging me to go back, saying she couldn't live without a mother, my heart didn't feel a thing. I coldly pushed her away. Under her shocked and sad expression, I turned and left. After the divorce proceedings were completed, Lance and I both remained silent throughout the process. He stared at the divorce certificate in his hand, his Adam's apple bobbed, and he said to me with red eyes, Ember, I'm sorry. Seeing the tears he shed out of guilt, I smiled with relief. It's all over. 8. Not long after divorcing me, Lance got a marriage license with Clementine. I heard that Clementine insisted on having a wedding, but Lance refused, thinking it would be embarrassing. So they didn't have one in the end. And their love story fermented faster and faster on the internet. At first, everyone was shipping them, but after someone dug up my wedding photo with Lance, the public opinion turned into a full-scale attack. Netizens also dug up Clementine's past in a foreign country. What a scumbag couple. I can't believe I shipped them. Clementine, aren't you ashamed? The man already has a wife, and you still rushed to give birth to his child? It's disgusting, and their daughter is so unfilial too. How could she be so disloyal? If she were my daughter, I would cut off ties with her. Clementine was cyberbullied and often received strange packages. Some netizens even photoshopped her picture into a death portrait. Even Dahlia, who was still in college, was cyberbullied. I saw my daughter Dahlia again at my mother's house. She clung to my mother and cried, "Grandma, my mom doesn't want me anymore, and she doesn't care about me when I'm being cyberbullied." When I saw her, my mother sighed and said, "No matter what, Dahlia is your biological daughter." Before my mother could finish, I interrupted. She's the one who wants to cut ties with me. Now that she's in trouble, she remembers her mom. What was she doing before? Dahlia walked towards me, sobbing, trying to win me over with her coquettishness, but I just took a step back. Ember is right. My sister also came over and stared at Dahlia coldly. "Aunt," Dahlia said. My sister frowned. "Don't call me aunt, I can't bear it." Dahlia looked at my sister and then at me. The light in her eyes dimmed. "Mom, will you really never recognize me?" She asked me with tears in her eyes. I didn't speak. She looked at me silently and seemed to understand. She nodded and said, "I know." She turned around and wiped away her tears. And within 2 days, I heard that Lance and Clementine were getting a divorce. Clementine threatened to divorce Lance with their infant child. Hearing about Lance's situation from my friends, I didn't care at all. It was like listening to a stranger's story. Kai has been with me all this time. I finally understood why he left without saying goodbye back then. When I found out you were in a relationship, I knew I had to leave. By the coffee shop window, the sunlight fell on his hair. I heard that he had never married all these years, but I didn't expect it was because of me. But he didn't know. When I was a teenager, I actually had a good feeling for him. I just didn't dare to say it. I was afraid that we wouldn't even be friends after that. I smiled and asked him, "Why didn't you tell me before? I always thought you had someone you liked." "That person was you." He looked at me deeply. "You've been in my heart for 20 years, but you didn't know it." He suddenly took out a bouquet of flowers from behind. Although we were no longer young, he knelt down on one knee and proposed to me firmly. "Ember, will you marry me?" I was shocked by his sudden proposal and covered my mouth in disbelief. Compared to Lance, Kai's love was more like a long, slow stream. My eyes welled up with tears, and I nodded happily. In front of everyone in the restaurant, we embraced and kissed. 9. When Kai and I went to the office to get our marriage certificate, we bumped into Lance and Clementine. They both seemed to have aged a lot. "It's you?" Clementine looked up, and her appearance startled me. Although she couldn't be called beautiful before, she was quite delicate. Now, besides her greasy hair that looked like it hadn't been washed for days, her face was covered in spots. Her cheeks were also deeply sunken. She glared at me with resentment and said through gritted teeth, "Ember, are you satisfied now? It's all your fault, you bitch. I won't let you live a good life." She lunged at me like a madwoman. Kai shielded me, and Clementine clawed at me, but Kai pushed her away. Lance grabbed her arm and slapped her hard. "Clementine, you crazy woman. What are you trying to do?" Clementine covered her face and cried hysterically. "You don't want me anymore, so what's the point of me living? Tell me, was it this woman who instigated it? Why don't you love me anymore?" Lance's face was full of disgust and impatience. "It's because of your improper behavior and bad character. It has nothing to do with Ember." I realized then that they both had divorce certificates in their hands. It turned out they had divorced. Lance forcefully shook off Clementine's entangled hand and walked towards me. "Ember, long time no see. He noticed the marriage certificate in Kai's and my hands, pursed his lips, and squeezed out a smile. Congratulations. I'm glad you found your happiness. There were tears in his eyes, but he held them back. And Kai and I held hands tightly, and I smiled faintly. I hope you find your happiness soon too.